Here at Birchal, we believe everyone should have the opportunity to invest in the brands they love.
With 36 successful offers closed and over $21 million raised, we are the largest equity crowdfunding platform in Australia, and we're on a mission to help startup founders gain access to capital.
So if you're looking for alternative funding for your business or looking for an early stage investment opportunity, then this is a podcast for you. I'm Claire Brown.
I'm Robin Holt, and in this show, we're sitting down with funded companies and industry experts to help you grow your business to the next level. Hi, and welcome everybody to another Birchal podcast. You've got Robin Holt here, who is one of your co-hosts, and I am joined by Ben from Indigo Power. Ben, I'm absolutely thrilled to have you here on the show to be able to talk through how you absolutely smashed your maximum target of 300K. You launched last week, and well, it was literally 8 days ago. You launched your campaign. Did you really think that you were going to hit your maximum target as soon as you did?
Robin, no, we didn't expect that at all. The economy's in complete lockdown. We've got a pandemic sweeping across the country. We were a bit cautious in setting our target, but we had we were certainly hopeful that we might hit that 300,000, and we'd have to do a lot of work to get there, and a lot of promotional activity and a lot of following up with people and reminding them. But and we thought probably it would take the whole weeks, but maybe we'd get there. But to hit it in 3 or 4 days was.
You smashed it.
Yeah, it was amazing. Yeah, it was great.
And it was so fun to look at the data as well, because you would have nailed it it was just in 3 days, but basically somebody at like 11 o'clock or close to midnight put some money in, and then it wasn't until 6 a.m. that somebody ticked it over and got you to your maximum target the next day. So might be 4 days, but we can say you pretty well got there in 3. But just to give a bit of background to everybody, Ben is the founder of Indigo Power, which effectively creates these regional hubs for people to access renewable energy and renewable sources. But without me going into all of this detail about who Ben is and how his business started, I thought we could hear it from Ben himself. So I think that it would be amazing if you could break down exactly what Indigo Power is and what you've really done to get the business to this stage, because it's something that everyone was so excited about. And you've built this remarkable community who is not only an advocate for your business, but now they're a shareholder in your business. So how have you done that, and what has been the journey for Indigo Power so far?
Yeah, so I'm one of a member of a committee called Totally Renewable Yak and Dander, and that was where the Indigo Power journey began. So that's a little not-for-profit group, and in 2014, I guess realising that more needed to be done about climate change, but also realising the agency of communities, and especially rural communities who have got their act together a little bit. That putting those two together and thinking, hey, we're not going to solve this global crisis, but we can do our little bit here on our patch. And so when that was set up, it was set up with 100% renewable energy target just for that town. And then over the years of experimenting and different partnerships that we made, we put together a 5-stage roadmap in partnership with a distributed energy specialist company called Mondo. And they have some really clever smart grid technology.
Yeah.
And we sat down and we said, look, a town like Yak and Dander, we think we could get it to 100% renewable energy in this way. And that was the basis for this idea of a community energy hub, and basically to say, look, we needed to get more household generation storage out there with a smart control device. We needed to set up Indigo Power, a community energy provider, and we needed all the people in that town to join Indigo Power so that we could do some notional energy sharing, see how much energy was being generated and how much energy was being consumed in that town. And then we needed to build some scaled generation and storage as well as sort of top up supply. So that pretty simple plan has evolved into now this community energy hub idea.
Sure
And
thing.
that's really why Indigo Power was set up to do that in Yakandanda, and then to take that pilot that we've been working on in Yakandanda and now after this share offer to help expand that out across our patch here in northeast Victoria, and later across the border into southern New South Wales as well.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, it's so exciting as well because you've not only mentioned we're in lockdown, but obviously it was such a, nobody knew if this was the right timing to launch your equity crowdfunding campaign. Is it the right timing to go full steam ahead with the business and not hibernate perhaps? Or, you've been having to deal with all of this and then you open your equity crowdfunding raise, which to everybody who's watching you, it thinks it's an incredibly brave thing to do because obviously nobody else knows exactly what's going to happen. You've smashed it, which is huge. But I think what's so amazing is that you've taken such a strong community feel approach. And one of the things which I really love is the fact that I don't think people felt like they were, just shunned with the idea of buying into the business at this early stage. It was something which you were taking them on step by step as a journey. And so with Indigo Power itself, this was always the intention for the business to eventually equity crowdfund it. Is that right?
Yeah, that's right. So the equity crowdfunding, when we set up Indigo Power, we set it up as a public unlisted company.
Yeah.
And I think rather than a private company. And we did that
really,
really consciously because we wanted to have a lot of shareholders over, at the time, you could do a public unlisted company could do an equity crowdsource funding capital raise. So we picked that. We said we're going to have a lot of shareholders and we're going to have anyone can join as a shareholder. We didn't pick the cooperative model because we thought people should be able to come on as customers without becoming a shareholder. But we did want to have this really broad community ownership. So right from when we were incorporating, we were thinking about equity crowdsource funding. And I guess one of the interesting things about it is we've also been working up to this point to get to an equity crowdsource funding campaign, and there's always been this promise that Indigo Power is going to be 100% community owned, and that means people who help set up the business. The only people who own shares in Indigo Power are the people who have pitched in their money. So the people who help set it. There's no big tranche of shares held by any founders or anything like that. It's all people are just buying in at the ground level, and the people who own those shares own 100% of the company. So it's 100% community owned, and a social enterprise as well. So a for purpose company around that clean energy imperative, climate change imperative. So right from the start, I think equity crowdsource funding was going to be the tool to have people buy in a small amount and buy a part of Indigo Power and participate in the movement as shareholders.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, that's really part of the whole ethos of the business. It seems like the way that you operate is so community focused and so focused on not seeming very big. And in that sense, you don't want anybody to seem like they're, an overarching individual in the business who has all this influence and control. It's influence coming from everybody. And that's the democratic approach to your business, because you want everybody to feel a part of it. And you, with Yakandanda, you've grown up in that area. Did you feel like you were really the person that you wanted to see this happen? But how long did it take to get through that process of saying, okay, I can see that renewable energy solutions are popping up. I really want to do this. do I think I'm the right person to take this forward, or was it the case that nobody else was doing it and you thought, I really want to have this impact on the community? Yeah, it's an interesting.
Yeah.
Yes.
So we talk about sort of there being um, this sort of climate change imperative, I guess, and electricity is the largest source of greenhouse gas emissions in Australia. So there's a clear need there. And everyone knows that transitions, that the tools are there to transition. So I guess we were seeing that as can we, with our community connections, fast track and make a difference there. But there's also this consideration that I think the movement's going to, that transition is going to happen ultimately. The question a little bit for us was here where we are in regional Victoria, can we begin to lead that?
Sure.
And we capture some of the benefits and have them, retained here, and keep some of that money circling through our rural and regional communities. So that was sort of the idea, and we were seeing that opportunity, I think, seeing that transition, seeing the technology, seeing the need, seeing the opportunity, and thinking, we should give it a go. We should. The only way we can do it is if we set up a company, and we set up a for-purpose social enterprise. So we say we have these two things that we want to do. We want to 50% of any profits go to this clean energy imperative, and the other 50% go to shareholders. And both of those things are good ways of keeping the benefits in our communities. Because I think looking at that. That share offer, we had a lot of people from outside northeast Victoria, but equally most of them were in the towns and communities across our region, up in the towns and valleys of our region. So that was I think an important thing in having some of those shareholders at least locally. So I guess long answer to your question, but we were seeing that opportunity, not just myself, all the people who were doing what you say, community energy sort of work, and doing that work and saying, hang on, there's perhaps a business opportunity here for us in our region, and if we join together, then when we started a company that we all had a stake in, then we were in a position at least to begin to capture some of those benefits.
Yeah, no, 100%. And it's really, I mean, I love the for-profit, for-purpose model. I think it's the future of business, because businesses these days, it's not just like, corporate social responsibility it's not just fixated to the corporates of the world. Every startup and medium-sized business has to engage in this kind of activity. And especially since coming down here to Australia 2 years ago, one of the things I absolutely love is how much businesses focus on their social responsibility and giving back. And the businesses that don't are the ones that don't survive, and the ones that don't keep their customers, and the ones that don't thrive in these kind of environments. And not to even mention the fact that during this pandemic, one of the things that economists have been writing about and talking about is the idea that we're going to try and keep things local and try to use all our own resources to become as sustainable as possible in a country of our own. And obviously Australia has a fantastic climate. Everybody's talked about it before, and renewable energy can really provide that solution when you have such a fantastic climate. I'm sure it's something which you talk about so regularly, maybe you're fed up of mentioning it. But I think that, perhaps this is one of the pieces, not to mention as well the fact that there was always that community role in the equity crowdfunding that worked so well for you, Ben. But if you were to perhaps pinpoint something that you think that made your campaign succeed so well on above and beyond what you even expected it to, do you think that there are perhaps a few points that you think maybe Indigo Power did really well, or you guys did extremely well as a team?
Yeah, I think just that idea, I think that we were always working hand in glove, I guess, when does a campaign start sort of thing. It's like we always had this idea of community ownership, and we were always forecasting that that's integral to Indigo Power and who we are as a company was as soon as we could, we would have this opportunity to buy shares in Indigo Power and to again own 100% of the company. So that's sort of a component of I guess sharing the movement, and not just saying Indigo Power is a startup company that's going to market a product to a whole group of people in Northeast Victoria. Is to say more that, hey, there's this movement growing, and you're invited to participate in it, and one of the ways you can participate in it is becoming a shareholder. So I think from the start, we were in a sense building that crowd of the crowdsource funding. We were sharing ownership of Indigo Power. So as a for instance, we, back in the business planning stage before we even incorporated the company, we began to convene this network of all the community energy groups that were across Northeast Victoria, and we said, hey, we think this is a good idea. What does everyone think? And yes, everyone thought that was a good idea. So we set up this network to begin to work on this Indigo Power project, but also collaborate at a regional scale. And through that network, they represent all the towns across, or a lot of the towns across Northeast Victoria, or the region, and they sort of have acted as an advisory body, sounding board, as we were setting that up. And so things like choosing the name Indigo Power, we ran a big process. We had a lot of names down to a short list, and then voted on by publicly. Everyone voted, picked the name Indigo Power, and we chose, and everyone, all our people in our networks and our supporters chose the name Indigo Power. So
not just a case of looking at the URLs available and
well, that was one of the criteria. The URL
always
the business name had to be available, and the URL had to be available. But that's exactly right. So they that's sort of that. The actually ownership of the country was sort of like a logical next step, and there's all these people that put their names forward and had the voting campaigns or whatever to pick.
So
my Peppermint Power, my one didn't rate a mention, but Indigo Power got to the top. So so things like that, and checking in on our values and principles and all of that sort of thing, and so trying to do as well as we could. Make sure that this was not this was a shared project. And then the moment came, and even though it was a terrible moment, to tell people now's the moment that we're opening up to buy shares. When the moment did arrive, people had been waiting for it and jumped in. And the great thing about equity crowdsource funding is they could buy $100 worth of shares, and probably and a lot of people did, because that's the sort of that's what they could at this stage. That everyone wanted to own their little parcel of shares and participate in that way, and we were encouraging them to pitch in what they could. And so we had ended up with a lot of small shareholders helping to get to that maximum target, which was fantastic.
And at that stage, at that level, you're really just going to be able to say, I own shares in your company. I supported you guys. I can't put much in, but, I supported, and now I'm a shareholder. And I think that's the ownership piece, which is just so powerful with equity crowdfunding, because that person could shout around and tell 5 people about it. And then, you've ended up growing the business because of that advocate who's out there. And I love that you focused on it from day one. Though that's key to me, because one of the things which I having now been in the equity crowdfunding space for almost 5 years, I feel like I've had this conversation over and over again, is the factor of just, starting early and getting started on your preparation early, and doing everything that you need to do to pre-warn everyone. And I think that, the fact that you built this company and you always had the intention of bringing in multiple shareholders is probably one of the key factors as to why this was so successful. Because when you opened it up, there was no surprise. There was nobody who was saying, well, I don't ever see you doing this. This was always the intention of the business. And I think the message itself, and actually the timing can, there's many positive spins out of the potential timing here, because you've done an awful lot, and, building this in Yakandanda. And now I want to talk about actually the growth of the business itself, because you had your first regional hub and you've grown out, in that area. And now you've got these funds to be able to grow out into, is it 16 other regional towns? Or perhaps you've got an even bigger roadmap for more, but what's the growth looking like over the next 12 months, or perhaps even further for Indigo Power?
Yeah, so we are really at the start of this of the Indigo Power journey, I guess. So we've been piloting in Yakandanda, and there's a few different ways to expand, I think, and one of them is or maybe expands, improve, but it's definitely expanding the catchment. So we are now rolling across 30 new community energy hubs across northeast Victoria. So that's exciting. So we'll be able to reach across the region and reach into those towns and help set up those community energy hubs. So people can join Indigo Power as a customer and have us supply them with electricity. So that's one, and then across also into southern New South Wales, as I say, working to expand over there in the coming months now. There's also, I think, making the community hubs are really meaningful for members, participants. So that's to say, at the moment we're working on some software that's going to be able to show people, okay, so you're in the Yakandanda Community Energy Hub, but you can see Indigo Power supplying you electricity, and of the energy supplied by Indigo Power, you can see that notionally, X percent has come from your neighbours who have solar panels. Y percent comes from this Yakandanda community scale Yakandanda battery that we're building. And the rest, comes from the grid. So working with our partners to finalise that piece of software, I think, is going to be really, really important, so that those with solar can hopefully see that, oh, that's nice, it's going to other members in my community who don't have solar, and vice versa. Those without it can say, gosh, Indigo Power supplying me with power, and 30% or 40% came from other people in Yakandanda who have solar power systems. So making that participation really meaningful through that software is another key step in our growth following this share offer. As well as, I guess, the final piece is working on a program. We have this Yakandanda solar and battery system that's scheduled to begin supplying power, hopefully in this financial year, before June 30. So working on improving that model, and making sure we can roll out that sort of community scale supply in other towns as well. Is an important part of the growth story as well. Yeah.
Oh, that's awesome. And I mean, once you get to that fully sustainable, everybody's powered on Indigo Power in the town piece, then these towns can just say, we don't need the big energy, we don't need the corporations to be able to
find our power effectively. And I love the idea that you can even be powering your house and it's actually coming from a neighbor who's, two houses down. Yeah. That's awesome technology. That's awesome. No, I'm sure it's a huge reason as to why people would want to be buying from you, because I saw in the video actually that one of your customers was really keen to not only support local businesses, and obviously that's a huge aspect of Indigo Power itself, but he was saying it's cheaper. And I don't know if that's something which even plays into the part of it too much here. I know everybody's always going to be conscious of price point. Is it something that you do focus too much on, or would you say that actually the community aspect of being sustainable is enough to have your customers really buy into Indigo Power, or do you think the price point comes into it as well?
It's a really interesting question, actually, and it's one we're sort of learning a bit about. I think we, I think there's an expectation that oh, nice story, very ambitious. Probably a bit. People are a bit uncertain of it, or
Yeah. You gotta have
and then they think it must cost more.
Yeah.
It must cost more. But and I'm often surprised to think, to see that actually we send them we look up their prices, and actually we're cheaper, and that often shocks people. So it's that's a really nice thing to be able to do. And I think it's an important to make that point as well, is that renewable, this focus on renewables and this aspiration that we have is going to be the new normal. So you shouldn't really have to pay more for it.
Yeah.
It is actually a genuine opportunity. Like, it's one of those nice things where doing becoming more environmentally friendly is and decarbonising and that sort of thing is ultimately going to be cheaper.
Yeah.
So that's certainly the message we want to convey. And I think also just to be in the market at a really nice price point is also something that makes people stand up and pay a bit of attention. Is that it's not just this is a real a going concern. It doesn't rely on sky high prices. It's a genuine business. It's got good pricing and a good long-term future.
Yeah, definitely. And it's not only that factor, but obviously renewables have been around for a lot longer than everybody even suspects. So they are actually now at a reasonable price, and in some ways cheaper to, kit out and actually put together. And so that price should always transfer to the end user. But even just thinking about Indigo Power and the idea of everybody in a hub itself actually relying on one another's renewable power to be able to then power their own homes. I was just thinking, obviously you've been through this process and you've gone from town to town, and that's an incredible way to grow the business and bring everybody together and make sure that they're all sustainable without big energy. But when it comes to cities, I know that there are power issues in New South Wales, perhaps in certain regions. And I'm in a suburb in southeastern Melbourne, and I feel like there would absolutely be a case for something like Indigo Power, because these suburbs themselves are little pockets. They're not considered Melbourne itself always, and they're little pockets, and they like to have their own feel and like to have their own connections. Is there something which you've looked at as a test case for Indigo Power? I'm sure it could be applied, but is it perhaps something you've thought about on the roadmap for years to come?
Yeah, it's an interesting thought. So and to jump back to the very high level for a second, so we, I guess, take a chance on people wanting wanting to connect with their local communities and feeling like they are a part of their local community, and you know, sure, perhaps they would normally do that by joining the cricket club or the footy club or the Lions club or garden club, you know, so on, or just chatting at the cafe with the people they bump into. They feel like they're a part of that community. And
definitely.
Not to get too philosophical, but sometimes, you know, the contemporary moment is perhaps that feeling is you know, lost a little bit in the globalization of things. So, you know, we're taking a chance on people wanting to feel that, and energy being a way they can easily do that. Just opening their computer and say, oh, look, that's a nice thing. That a lot of the power that's coming from, you know, let's say Fitzroy or something like that, is coming from some rooftop solar or whatever the case may be.
Sure.
So it'd be probably a bit harder to get, you know, some solar on some of those townhouses and that sort of thing. But you know, but that's the sort of the chance we take, I guess, is that people looking to connect in that way. And probably the model would be a little bit different if you were in those suburbs. You'd have to think a bit more creatively, but that's, I guess, the question, I guess, is, does the thread still hold in the cities as we know it does in the country? Those communities are really strong.
Definitely.
And you know, in where the suburbs have that same, they probably have it a little bit less, but there could be you know, people who want to connect back in with those people building lives in those suburbs, who want to feel like they're a part of that suburb, and that's where they're building their life, and perhaps they want to engage with their community through energy. So that's you know, that's, I guess, the high level question, and at the operational level, whether we ever choose to you know, launch a product into Melbourne or Sydney or something like that is you know, not on the immediate horizon, but it's an interesting thought. And I think you mentioned it a moment ago as well about, you know, the current time not being you know, closing down a series of possibilities as it opens up some others perhaps. And that, I think that idea of you know, you sort of mentioned that localization is it probably people are beginning to think about, how do they support their local communities?
Exactly.
So it's probably, in terms of this through line that sits through the Indigo Power story, is that connecting two communities through energy is probably not a bad moment to be having that, to be having a terrible moment to be launching and doing share offers and that sort of thing. But in the long term, it might I guess, play into that that narrative a little bit about that rethink that people maybe are doing in the current moment.
No, 100%. And I think that, you know, with everything that you've summarized here is really the reason why Indigo Power has done so well within its local community, and also other people who are a bit further beyond, because other people would look at their own town, and there's no doubt that you're going to have some investors who come on board and say, Ben, we need you in our town. Come and think about us and come and start over here. You've got a lot of work you know, on your list to do over the next 12 months with these new funds, and it's amazing to have also so many shareholders on board. I think it's 261 now you've got, which is that, you know, that's diversity, that's democratization of investment, and that's what we're so excited about. But when it comes to that, you've even had people who have actually missed out, and I've seen that on the offer itself. So one of the things which I want to kind of extend to anybody who perhaps is listening, who is one of those people who expressed interest or is really keen to invest into this offer, is that you can go onto the Birchal profile and hit that follow button, or they can head to your website and subscribe. I'm sure you'll keep everybody updated there. But it's been so great to sit down and have this chat with you. I'm thrilled that we were able to work together to be able to help fund Indigo Power, and and help your business stretch its legs and grow to the next stage. I was just wondering if there's anything which you feel we haven't covered, which perhaps even somebody considering equity crowdfunding could benefit from, or maybe a potential investor in Indigo Power.
I think we've gone through through most of the basics. I know one of the things that interests me in this whole crowdsource funding opportunity, I guess, that's opening up and opened up recently and continues to develop, is this idea of, now we do have 261 new shareholders. Is there an opportunity for, and we do have a lot of people that missed out, is there an opportunity for a sort of equally simple, online, effective share trade opportunity, so that Indigo Power book can have, those shareholders can think, oh, I need that $1,000 now for whatever the kids' braces or something like that, and having a ready market of buyers and sellers in Indigo Power shares, with it not being too cumbersome to make that trade. So I'm interested in that space that's beginning to develop up as well.
Yeah, of course. Oh, well, you're talking about a product we've been working on for a long time now, which is Birchal Trade itself. We haven't actually gone through the process of fulfilling those trades for the first business, which was obviously planned but put on hold due to the current circumstances that we're in right now. But yeah, it's always been a topic which has been so interesting to discuss with so many people, because what you're essentially talking about here is a secondary market with people who want to be able to buy into the offer, and then some people who want to be able to potentially sell, and then fulfilling some of those trades, but within a company which is actually privately held, or like you said, it's public unlisted. And so in that case, there is the work which we've already done has already benefited us in the sense that we've actually built out that platform. But yes, it is potentially there to make these illiquid shares a little bit more liquid for some people who might want to exit in the future. And I think it's something which we're going to be providing a lot more guidance on this to anybody who does come in and has invested into Indigo Power in the future, and has invested in this past round. But yeah, you're absolutely right. Some people might want to try and exit from their investment maybe a year or two down the line. And if you've got people knocking on your door, which I'm sure you will have, to buy up some of those shares, then that definitely presents an opportunity for them to be able to exit.
Yeah, interested to see how that unfolds.
Absolutely. I mean, if you even look at some of the biggest equity crowdfunding platforms which have started overseas, they've had secondary markets in operation. I think they've been in beta stages for a long time, but they have actually had those secondary markets which have been sort of buyer-led, been running for quite a long time, and they've been working quite well. There's even a huge one in the US. So we've even got some examples to be able to look at and see what we can learn from them, and what we can apply differently, or what we can apply which is working well. So yeah, there's absolutely an application here for people who might want to sell their shares in a little bit of time. But look, it's been so great to have this chat with you, Ben. I'm, as I said, so pleased that we could work together on Indigo Power, and you've absolutely smashed your way through your target. You're fully subscribed at $300,000, and that means that the round has closed in record-breaking time. It's just doing this during a global pandemic. It's a masterpiece, I think, for anybody who's listening. So for anybody who is potentially considering equity crowdfunding for their own business and their applicability, if you want to have a chat with us, please feel free to shoot me an email. It's robin@birchal.com, or you can hit us up on the contact us button, which is on the birchal.com website, and just fill out a button there. It will likely be me getting in touch with you. So it's been an absolute pleasure here, Ben. I will wish you well and wish you all the best. I'm sure we'll chat at some point soon, but either way, it's been so great. And
I'm so thrilled that we can work with businesses like yourself who really adopt that, for profit, for purpose model, because that's the future of business for me.
Thanks, Robin.
Right.
Thanks for having me on.
Oh, no, it's been an absolute pleasure. I'll see you guys on the next episode. Take care.